So we're here together to celebrate the Minnetonka Drive In and what it's created, a legacy of family and community, and absolutely great food. It is what is good about our Westonka area. Gordon and Jeanette Bennyhoff did build the drive-in in 1961. Here's Gordon and Jeanette's wedding photo. So I want to start with a little history about Gordon and Jeanette just to give you a frame. The Bennyhoffs arrived in the Pennsylvania colony in 1751. So 267 years ago. That was Gordon's 5 times great-grandfather. To give you a little bit of context, that year the first hospital in the colonies was founded, and Ben Franklin had been named the first president of the College of Philadelphia. The Bennyhoff family remained in Pennsylvania for 2 more generations, moving west when Gordon's great-grandfather, Peter, arrived in the bustling city of Vandalia, Illinois. Peter was a wagon maker, and he was living in what was the capital of Illinois at the time. Gordon's grandfather, Ben, was a Civil War veteran, and he's 20 years old when his father, Peter, dies at the age of 46. Ben is the oldest boy of 10 siblings. He moves to Wisconsin, to Iowa, and finally he settles in Minneapolis. His profession is metalwork, and his son, Paul Bennyhoff, Gordon's dad, is born in 1887. Paul marries Mabel Fruin. You can see Mabel here on the lower left, and she's kind of got her arm with her father there. And they're a very interesting family. Definitely worth noting, Mabel's father, Gordon's other grandfather, William, was born in England. He immigrates to the United States in 1865. He moves to Minneapolis in 1870, and he founds a screw manufacturing company. William secures a patent on his invention that automatically regulates the speed of water wheels. That's very important for the exploding milling industry. His invention is so successful that it's even used internationally, and he uses his financial success to patent a liquid drawing device, coin-operated machine, a vending machine, if you will, that dispenses water by glass. After that, in 1890, he builds the Fruin Flour Milling Company, but he's not done yet. Considered to be an avid fisherman, William decides to build a pond to keep his catches alive until he's ready to eat them. While excavating for the pond, he hits a flow of spring water, abandons his pond project, and bottles spring water with delivery to Minneapolis. William is best known for the Glenwood-Inglewood Spring Water, later known as the Glenwood-Inglewood Company of Minneapolis, and purchased in 2011 by Premium Waters. Even Mabel's mother, Gordon's grandmother, has a story of her own. Henrietta Bergquist, you see her there on the left, is William's wife. She came to the Minnesota Territory with her Swedish immigrant parents. Father Andrew staked a claim in the big woods of Minnesota in 1853. He traveled west of Minneapolis, and he was looking for Lake Minnetonka. He ended up on the shore of a spring-fed lake in Carver County, and he named it Clearwater. We know it today as Lake Waconia. After co-founding the town of Scandia, that was later absorbed by Waconia, the family eventually settles in Minneapolis, and he, in addition to raising 10 kids with William, Henrietta is a poet and a published author. So after researching this history, I'm convinced that Gordon came by his ambition quite naturally. Paul and Mabel raised their family, Jeanette, Gordon, Howard, and Faith, in New Germany. They are good friends with the Blomquists of Waconia. Dad Berner, Mom Hannah, and their kids, Vernon, Ruth, and Jeanette. Gordon even dated Ruth. That was long before he would marry her little sister, Jeanette, in 1948. The Blomquists are Waconia merchants They have a department store, and they founded the Blomquist Funeral Home. Their kids grew up watching and helping run the family business that would serve Jeanette well for her future. She knew the long hours required to have a successful family business. In 1931, Gordon is off to the University of Minnesota studying engineering. It is the Depression, and he's lucky to be going to school and attending college. His life changes when his father dies 2 years later in 1933. At 20, Gordon makes the decision to leave school, and he takes his father's job in road construction to help support the family. Little sister Faith is only 7 at that time. Fast forward to 1942, Gordon joins the Seabees when the war begins, and with his engineering background and his skills, he's put to good use building roads and runways in the South Pacific. After the war, he returns to Waconia and finds work in a friend's creamery. He calls on his customers, a lot of them are drive-ins, and he finds himself repairing their commercial restaurant machines on his visit. After Gordon and Jeanette are married, Gordon decides that I might as well have my own business and fix my own machines. He and Jeanette buy, where's my drive-in? There it is. Buy an A&W franchise in Montevideo. Gordon drives a taxi and does some plumbing work in the winter to supplement their income because the drive-in is closed. During that time, go backwards, son Paul is born in 1949. Sandy comes a year later, and baby Bonnie the next year. Shortly after buying the Montevideo drive-in, the city reroutes the streets, and that they are located on this, and it impacts their business significantly. Connie, Tim, and Nathan will come back. So Gordon decides to sell and open a new A&W franchise, and he chooses Spring Park in 1961. His family by this time, Paul is 12, Sandy is 11, Bonnie is 10, David is 8, Connie is 5, Tim is 2, Carmen was born that year, and Nathan hasn't even arrived yet. The family remains in Waconia until 1963. Jeanette is caring for 7 children while Gordon builds the drive-in from the ground up. This is a 1960 map of what the area looked like before Gordon broke ground. Jeanette said he could do anything, a combination of natural ability and his engineering background. His kids remember visiting the site and watching the drive-in take shape. And when it opens, the kids are helping. Jeanette remembers the first time Gordon told her that he needed her help at the drive-in. It was Mother's Day, 1963. She and the kids were waiting for Gordon to join them for dinner at his brother's family home on the bay behind the drive-in. Gordon was working at the drive-in, and he managed to get away by boat. When he arrived, he told her the news. She listened. She was holding baby Nathan. Carmen was 2, and Tim was 4. He needed her help, and Jeanette said she'd never done that kind of work before. And his humorous response, "You'll learn." And Gordon taught her every part of the business. Her first job was grilling, followed by working in every aspect of the drive-in. Everyone remembers baby Nathan in his high chair while his family worked around him. Eventually, everyone had worked everywhere. The kids I talked to all say the drive-in defined their childhood. Their memories are, for the most part, very positive. They all worked there through high school, college, and even after starting by washing root beer mugs and bundling napkins around plasticware for a penny each. The kids said they felt rich when they had $1 by the end of the day. And this is a picture of what the ages of the kids about the time that the drive-in was starting. All their school friends worked with them, and even some teachers were taught the restaurant business by the Bennyhoff kids, their students by day. Gordon was known for his inclusive nature. Jeanette remembers he thrived on relationships. Teenage employees remember he and Jeanette picked them up for work and often made sure they got home safe. The Bennyhoff Drive In played host to Mound High School Band, who needed to fundraise for their trip to Austria in 1972. They may not have known that Gordon made sure that they had the money that they needed. He worked hard to maintain a family-friendly atmosphere, no small feat in the 60s. And his kids remember his little black book. They still have it. And what you had to do to get included in the book. Refusing to stop racing motor, making a lot of noise, driving through a lot at reckless speed, laying rubber, illegal parking, drinking beer, sassy, loitering, racing through the lot with lights out, revving motor, grabbed ketchup and napkins and threw around the lot, ordered off the premises, swearing through the microphone, ordered to get out and stay out, drove off raising cloud of dust, shooting firecrackers, careless driving, almost hit behind the building. This is the building in the 1960s, and we even got a shot of some of the customers. Lori John says, the Bennyhoffs gave me my first job as a car hop back in 1979, and those were the days. The Bennyhoffs say they grew up here laughing and even fighting. They were cooking, car hopping, making onion rings, and washing glass root beer jugs. Their mom and dad taught them to work hard to serve the Lord and to serve others. The 1970 photo we found in one of the Mahayans, the yearbooks for the high school, and the Bennyhoffs were very supportive of high school activities. When the kids were not working, they were in school activities. They tell me that music was a very important part of their lives. Sandy and Bonnie in council band, Nathan on the trumpet, Paul looks like he has a trombone, Carmen is playing the piano, as her mother does, and Connie is on the flute. In the middle is class officers, and we do see that, I can see Connie in that as well. So they're very, very involved. Pam Iverson Anderson, who is in the class of 1972, said that her favorite memory was playing at the high school band fundraiser to raise money for their trip to Austria. She said the trip was amazing. And they were right in the parking lot. There were a lot of school activities, and wrestling was very popular in the family. You see Dave in the middle, Nathan and Tim on either side. In the 1980s, the next generation of Bennyhoffs is stepping up. Gordon and Jeanette are celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. Everyone agrees that Dave has remained at the drive-in the longest. He increased management responsibilities during the 80s, discontinuing the A&W franchise, and then renaming the business, the Minnetonka Drive In. He has continued to remain committed to a family atmosphere. He started the car show nights, participated in Mound City Days, and community celebrations. In the off-season, the lot is filled with pumpkins and hay bales in the fall, trees for the holidays, and even some llamas in 1988. In this slide, we also see that Aunt Faith on the lower right corner, and then Gordon up on the top. They had a flower market in the spring. In 2010, they celebrated their 50 years, having a celebration at the drive-in. Bonnie and Carmen, Sandy and Connie, Jeanette, Paul, Dave, Tim, and Nathan. They had games, they rode tricycles, they raced. And the next generation of Bennyhoffs are preparing. Noah's working in the grill, Hannah and Elizabeth with their grandmother Deb, and Aaron Vanderwall on the bottom, Sandy's son. Also, son Sam with his mom Deb, and grandson Max. Thursday night hot rods, very popular in Spring Park, great prices, and non-denominational car fans, Ralph Johnson says. All cars are welcome if they are pretty and fast, or pretty fast. Paul Taylor says, I've been a patron since about 1967, and I tell everyone what a great place with great food. Thursday night, classic cars. What a trip. Best hot rod hangout in Minnesota every Thursday night. A lot of cool cars and hot, delicious, all-American food. And the best cold homemade root beer. Nothing beats this place during the summer. Tyler Tower. Larry Oss says, I can't think of where I would rather be on a Thursday evening throughout the summer. The food is great, the people are wonderful, and the lot is overflowing with cool cars. It's a time capsule of history, keeping great things going right on the Dakota Trail. Hot rods on Thursday nights, a must for everyone. Classic Americana. Jimmy Bayless says, besides the fact that it's a locally owned family business, they have the most amazing food, which many recipes are made from scratch. The homemade root beer alone is worth the stop. Meet the Burroughs family. This is Karen Coral Smith in 1962. I worked there in the summer of '62. Mr. Bennyhoff would pick me up in the morning as I worked the day shift and I didn't have any way to get to work. My dad picked me up at the end of the day on his way home from Minneapolis. I cooked alongside a lovely older lady. She ran a tight ship. I would make the famous Bennyhoff onion rings, pour syrup into the A&W root beer dispenser, fry burgers, chicken fries, and make chili for the Coney dogs. It was a good place to work for 75 cents an hour and all the fries I could eat. Chris Barrett in 1991. I worked there in the late 80s, one of the best jobs in terms of fun that I ever had. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is from Mike Sitters. This is his photo in 1981 in the yearbook. When I was 16 years old and Dave was my first boss, he gave me a hard time for not putting enough ketchup on a burger that a customer ordered. I responded that our burgers were what people came for, and covering them up with ketchup didn't make sense. He stood back, thought a second, and said, you know what? You're right. What kind of a man says that to a 16-year-old kid? I've carried that lesson with me my entire professional career. Learn from everyone, no matter who they are or who you are. Throughout my life, it's made me a better leader and a better man. Thanks, Dave, for being an example to me then and over 35 years later. This is from Chris Resba. The drive-in was one of my favorite go-to places for sure in my teens. Most of my friends and I were not every parent's favorites, but Gordy always accepted us and treated us with kindness and like family. He and the rest of the Bennyhoffs left me with real positive memories that have lasted a lifetime, and I know I'm not alone. Also, I loved it when I could buy a gallon glass jug of root beer and enough chicken to bring home to Mom to give her a break once in a while, raising us kids all on her own. I don't forget that it was where I got the best California burgers and onion rings I have ever had. It was also there that I discovered how awesome a cherry Coke was. I've been addicted ever since. Thank you and your family so much for some of my best life memories of the day. God bless. This is Brenda Beersdorf Henches. Mr. Bennyhoff and my dad Elmer were friends. When my dad died in 1971, Mr. Bennyhoff gave me a job making onion rings. I was about 14. Linda Niemeyer. They have the best cheeseburgers ever. Fast, friendly service with a great menu in a beautiful Lake Minnetonka area. So what I'd like to do right now is ask the Bennyhoff family to come on up. We can turn on the lights and share some of their memories, and also ask the audience if they'd like to share memories, ask questions. Go ahead. This is Tim, Sandy, Tim, Jeanette, Bonnie, and Dave.
Okay, so first of all, I really want to thank all of you for coming out. This was just great. And secondly, Liz, you did an unbelievable job. It's just fantastic. I look out and I see the faces, and I know all the faces. The names are getting harder. Who's first?
Memories, comments, questions?
I'll help get it started. And I too want to say thanks. This is like This Is Your Life, that old TV show. One thing that I came to mind was my dad's sense of humor, and kind of a dry sense of humor, and a few things that went on around there. I don't know if you remember back in, I think, the 70s when McDonald's had the slogan, "We do it all for you." And I think my dad thought that was a little too much braggadocio. So up on the sign at the end of the season, it said, "Thanks for a good season. You do it all for us." Another sign that I saw in the place was, we had a sign up on the wall back by the kitchen. It said, "We believe everyone should work, especially those who have jobs." And then a third was, I think it was Dad that put this up. They had the pickup window in the back, and it was a pickup window, and people would try to order from the window sometimes, and it would slow things down, and we'd put signs up saying "No ordering at this window," but it never helped. So finally, the sign that ended up there was, "Do not even think of ordering at this window." And I can remember a car finally pulling up, stopped, looked at the sign, pulled around, pulled up to the ordering spot instead. So a few memories of that sense of humor.
So speaking about signs, the one sign, and I just told Liz about this, I know where that sign is. Dad was great about making signs. He loved his signs. And one year he put if you've been in the drive-in, you know where the picnic area is. And Dad was always worried about the little kids. So one year he put a picket fence up along the picnic tables so the little kids wouldn't run out onto the tar. And after he did that, cars kept pulling up and parking along the fence. So he went over to the shed, got his paint out, made a sign, and it said, "You can't park by this fence. Mother said so." So he really was funny.
Does anybody have a memory they'd like to?
Talk about the sign, when you changed the sign for the movie.
They put up a temporary sign for the movie, that movie.
Are you talking about the Benny's sign or the A&W sign?
The top, when you changed it because they were filming a movie at your place, or I can't remember what that was all about.
The sign was in Benny's instead of...
Over the years, there's actually been about, if I can remember right, there's been about 12 different either commercials made or parts of movies made at the drive-in because of the historical, it fit right into the 60s and the 70s. I don't know if you remember one, I believe that the Benny sign was part of, if you remember, do you ever remember the movie that came out called Hermantown that was all full of men? And they brought women in, they wanted to get the men all married. So there's a part in there where part of Hermantown was they had this diner. And so they came in and they set up the kitchen the way they wanted, and they shot a picture of one of these guys that was gonna get married, and his job was running this diner. And I believe that's where they named it Benny's. And they put this, I wanted to keep the sign and keep it up there for a couple of years, but it was made out of foam. So it like disintegrated in like a month, so. But, let's see. Oh, another, what do you call it, TV ad that they did, and what it was for the, it showed over in Europe for like 3 years and played on the radio station and TV stations for the servicemen. And they came in the drive-in and they shot they were nuts over Elvis. And so they had Elvis come in his truck, or his car, his big Cadillac. And does anybody else remember? I had just gone blank. I'll come back to that. Yeah, go ahead.
What about it?
I was just telling the story
There's not
about
much more to say about it. Absolutely, we did a commercial, so,
with Elvis.
yes.
Was it the real Elvis?
That was the real Elvis. Right.
Sandy, do you want to talk about the jumping off the bridge after work?
The Sickinators, anybody remember the Sickinators in town? Okay, well, Jackie was a couple years younger than me. And yeah, we decided after work we would just go out on the Seton Bridge and jump in the channel, which was probably not wise, but, because I think it was against the law, but we were both blind as a bat too and couldn't see if there was a boat coming. That was just after work entertainment. One of the things I remember that I loved as a kid was once in a while, Dad would take us out after work in the boat for a little midnight ride, and we would take whatever food was left over, usually chili dogs, wrap them up and take them in the boat and just kind of cruise around the lake. And that just really sticks in my mind. But we were open really late because of Tonka Toys. And I believe Tonka Toys, the last shift got out around midnight. And Dad just felt like we needed to be open so those people could come and get something to eat before they went home. And I was really young then. We were still coming over from Watertown at the time. I think Liz mentioned Waconia, but actually we were from Watertown.
Sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, this is a bit, I don't have a lot of, my memories aren't that clear, but I have a couple vivid ones. Dad had a cot down in the basement for some reason, and I just have a vivid memory. It must have been spring or fall, so that it was a little bit cold outside, or it was cool in the basement, but because I was so young, 11, 12 years old, waiting for them to close, and so by the time he got cleaned up after the Tonka Toy shift came in, and we were going on probably 1 a.m. On a weekend probably. Anyway, I just had this memory of going down in the basement. I finished up my work and it was getting late, so I just went and laid on that cot, turned on that little space heater, and fell asleep, and they woke me up and it was time to go home back to Watertown. Sounds like child abuse, the kids in the basement.
Sandy tells me a story about one of her teachers coming to work at the drive-in? Connie, okay. That one of the teachers came and she had to teach him. She doesn't remember exactly how old she was, middle school maybe a little older, but she was teaching him how to work at the drive-in. It was her teacher.
Crazy stuff. This is on, right? Yeah. So I know a lot of it. So I came on in the later years, like the last 20 years or so. What? It's on, right? Yeah, it's on. It's on. It's on. So I always heard all the stories about how they always have water fights after work. Because you know, when it's 90 out, it's hot in there. It is really hot. So I would always hear about all the stories of, you know, people throwing buckets of water on each other. One time I heard about Tim and Nathan taking the hose and putting it through the bathroom window while Carmen was going to the bathroom and soaked her. And Dave took part in some of these water activities too, but I was kind of a poo-poo when I came aboard. I didn't want anyone to get hurt, so I kind of put a kibosh to some of those water fights and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's. I was the killjoy. But I just know that it's really, in terms of what I've enjoyed about working there in the past 20 years, is obviously the kids that come through. And we have a lot of families where there's anywhere from two to 3 to 4 siblings that all come through and often work at the same time. What I've really found rewarding too is that these kids will come in, and some of them do not have real supportive home lives, and it really is amazing what, you know, we've had people that have lost their mom and come and they work for us, and just you know, a variety of stories of whatever it may be, and you're a support. And what I've loved is that I've told some parents too, I said, I actually, because you know how kids are when they're teenagers, you don't see them, they're gone, and you almost don't get to know them as teenagers, but we really get to know them, and so I said, I'm so lucky that I can be and spend so many hours with your kids, and including my own kids and now my grandkids, to get to know each other as they're that age and they don't want to, you know, hang around you. We still get to work together. So.
And tell the audience who you are.
Oh, I'm Deb. I'm Dave's wife. So I think we're going to have our 27th wedding anniversary later this year.
Can you all speak to the things that your father did for the community that maybe a lot of people don't know about? The one thing I know is about the band fundraiser and his helping with the trip to Austria. I know he brought people home, and Jeanette says, your mom says that she also took people home. She made sure that they got home safely.
I think what comes to mind more is just Dad's relationship with the kids. He was just a very well-liked and respected person.
We still take people home. I mean, it still happens all the time. I pick people up, bring them home, whatever, or the older kids will bring the younger ones home that don't drive. And we've continued through the years to do stuff with the community and the school. Whether that means, I mean, every year we donate the water and they have the car washes. I mean, that's been going on since I can remember. I don't know, it's just our, you know, we have the kids come in for the field trips now, the little kindergartners, and so we've always been active, and obviously all of the siblings and then all of Dave and my children have gone through the Mount Westonka school system, so we've always tried to still be supportive of the school and the community.
Yeah, one of the things, the way the Christmas tree sales got started was originally Dad let the Boy Scouts use the lot to sell.
Exactly. But the Boy Scouts were never there. It was always the fathers that had to do the work, so it kind of fizzled out. So then Dad said, you know, we have to keep this going for the community. There's no Christmas tree lots here. So,
Dave, do you remember when you used to come and help us when we had the handicap picnic?
I was just gonna remember that, or talk about that. I remember one thing that we started, and I believe my dad was still there then when that first started, right? When was do you remember what the years were? Because that was,
No, I was trying to think of that and I just.
I mean, that went, okay, Dr. Romness. Does anybody remember Dr. Romness? Okay, so,
And Jessens next door.
and who?
And we were Jessens next door.
Right, right. So what they did is they decided one year that, I believe all the handicap came out from Minneapolis,
They
right?
did. They were brought by bus
And they wanted to give all these handicapped people a really nice Saturday afternoon on the lake. They were giving pontoon rides. They came to me and said, would you be willing to donate the chicken and cook the chicken for this handicap picnic? Well, of course my dad said sure, because my dad was always giving away food. I think that's where I got my thing about giving food away all the time. But anyhow, that started, and I can't remember how many people came out when that first started, but I remember the biggest year I had cooked 2,500 pieces of chicken for the handicap picnic. And I mean, I literally, after prepping, and that was when I used to cut all the chicken by hand, from whole chickens to into 8 pieces. And then my dad finally bought me a chicken cutter, which if you saw it today, you'd think, ooh, you're gonna be cutting yourself, not the chickens. And so anyhow, I remember that the handicap picnic, it was a ton of work, but it was
Yes, it was.
very neat.
Well, and you fed not only the people that came out, the handicapped, their drivers and their families that came with them, but also a lot of people from the Mound community. It was announced in churches and that we needed volunteers. And so we had all kinds of volunteers that you also fed. So it grew to be a large number.
Right, and I don't know if Mom remembers this, but she made pails, 5 bucket-sized pails of potato salad by hand. She still has the best potato salad recipe if you can get it out of here. So, yeah, that was a great event.
We appreciated it very much.
One thing that reminds me of with the chicken, we used to have, fortunately we have all our fingers, we used to have contests, see who could cut a chicken into 8 pieces the fastest. And I do have to concede that David won. I think he could cut a chicken into 8 pieces and it was between 30 and 45 seconds. That was not with the machine. That was just a kitchen knife.
Can you talk about how how your business has changed since the trail opened as a biking trail, cycling trail? Because I know it used to be the railroad.
I mean,
How's it impacted? Yeah, how's it impacted your business? What's different?
Well, it's increased the business. I mean, if it's 70 to, if you come in the drive-in on, say, a Saturday or Sunday, and the sun is out, and say it's probably above 60 degrees, from about 11 to 2, all you see along the grass are bicycles laying down, and the whole picnic area is full of bicyclers. So, the trail has been a great addition to our community.
And the only thing we had to adjust is that we put water out every day. Every day we just started putting water out because it's there for, and the bathrooms. For a long time, I believe, when the trail opened, we were the only restroom stop for quite a few miles. So we kind of had to, just adjust to that little bit of it, you know. But
Though, you know, I met a lot of people when they started coming through there, that said they were from Wayzata or from Excelsior area, and they would say, I didn't know you existed out here. So they had never come west until they started coming west on the bike trail. So even though they lived 50 years, they didn't know the drive-in was out here. Yeah.
Even today though, my son and I went biking. No, it's on. Okay. My son and I went biking to Shaka. I'm sorry. We're going towards Minneapolis on the trail. There is no place to stop. If you don't stop at your place, from there to Anoka, there is no place on the trail. So you have a great spot.
There's another side of that story that Dave and I had a number of conversations on Jen Olson, and got involved with, spent a little time involved with government and dealing with bureaucracies. And what was it still blows my mind that when that was going to become a trail, of course, its own right-of-way was bought by Hennepin County. They were going to put up a fence along the line, and there was, that's kind of an uncertain place. It was going to make complications for him for trucks coming in for delivery, but it was going to inhibit people from coming off the trail for his business. Now, we talked about the fact that this was good for his business. It's good for the public use of that public land. And that, I think you negotiated so that instead of a big chain link fence along there, you do have there is still a kind of a barrier, but it doesn't prevent people from coming. But I think that's public land. And as you've just been confirming, it's a valuable stop, and they have served people, whether it's with water. I think the county even charges you for mowing. And I can't remember what else. I haven't had time to deal with it, but I feel like I've got to do something more to try to put some pressure, at least shame them into this ridiculous treatment that you have of what has been just a dandy amenity for this area. So that people aren't, people were afraid of the trail, and that people were going to be breaking into houses and all that kind of thing. Well, no, if you have where it's a delightful experience, if you have opportunities along the way, that's what we should be encouraging and keeping that positive, because it is, you're certainly an asset to the users of the trail. And I commend you for all that the patience you've had in dealing with government and that. So, wish I could have done more.
Yeah, I'm Dave. I'm lucky enough to be old enough to remember when that was the R&L Drive-In. We talked about that one day.
That was owned by the Nelsons.
Yeah, Ralph and Lillian Nelson. And I didn't even know. I remember looking at that sign. It actually looked like an outhouse. Yeah, that's what it reminded. I've got a picture of that someplace. I'll have to look. But we talked about it one day and how far back the property went. And you tell me something about trading that piece of land. Is how you got into that?
Well, okay. I remember in 1960, I was like 9 years old, and I kind of used to always shag along with Dad. I don't know how I was the one out of 8 that always seemed to be behind him if he was going to a restaurant show or out to Rudy Eklund's. His best friend lived in Waverly, and his name was Rudy Eklund. He actually owned, there's 3 parcels of land to the drive-in. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, so Rudy Eklund owned the first piece. And my dad, actually, the way the drive-in got started, it wasn't supposed to end up where it is today. down in Surfside, you know where that little place is where they rent
Yeah.
wave runners and stuff right now?
Yeah.
Okay, my dad owned that property. And at the time, he had a little box there, and for 50 cents you could park your car and trailer there if you were going out on the lake. Well, my dad's idea was, when he decided to build an A&W, he wanted to build it there because he thought because of the lake and all the people that came to the lake, that was the sure thing. He was thinking lake. Well then Rudy was he was a great farmer. I mean, we always called him Uncle Rudy. He was more of an uncle to us than anything else. But so they were standing looking at that old building you were talking about. I remember to this day standing there with them and they're looking at it. And Rudy said, no. He said, this is the sure bet. This road out here is going to be the road to Minneapolis. You wait and see. And between the two of them, they just decided, okay, we're going there. And so that's where it started.
Yeah. And I remember going to the Minnetonka Drive In. Personally, I never A&W approached me on that. But, one other thing I want to tell the whole family is, between Excelsior, Wayzata, Mount, anything in the west end of the country, your 50th party celebration at your drive-in was probably the greatest party I've ever been to.
I wanted to talk about, I grew up over in Harrison's Bay on Willow Point. So when A&W first opened up, it was in '61. All the kids in our neighborhood over there, we found out about that it was opening up. So we had to walk across the trestle. The train track was there then, so we walked down the railroad tracks instead of going over the bridge where the cars were, because it was narrow. But it was pretty exciting going over all them railroad ties to get there. It was a lot of fun, and of course we thought about jumping off the bridge. But I never did that, my sister did. Anyway, one story about the A&W is that in 1966, June 8th, it was senior skip day, and I was graduating from Mount High School. And I had met this girl in her class, my wife, in 8th grade, and I knew she had a sailboat. I would sit and talk to her, but I never went on a date with her. So that was in 8th grade. Well, it was senior skip day in 1966, and we actually skipped, because normally you couldn't take off a day at Mount High School. Benwood would show up trying to find you while you're not at school. Anyway, we did take off that day, and I took this girl sailing on Harrison's Bay, and in my E-boat. And so that was our first day. So every year since, we go to the A&W on June 8th, and we have a swamp. A swamp is root beer with orange juice, I believe. And my wife had the onion rings, and I looked over at when they came, and I looked at her, and I said, "You're not going to eat those things, are you?" I said to her, because I'd never had onion rings. Of course, we go there all the time now and have them. So anyway, we've been going there for 52 years on June 8th, and they make us a swamp, which they don't have anymore, and we have onion rings. So, and I know many other people, I know 5 other people that I know that worked there at that time. So they've employed a lot of people over the years. Thank you.
Cindy, I saw your hand go up. Thanks for coming.
Well, I'm lucky to be here. I went out on Facebook, and Jenny let me know this morning. I got
little thing from her, and she says, "You're going, aren't you?" So I'm really thankful to her. She loves the drive-in. I just wanted to say that my memory of Gordon was always really special. He was so kind and helpful. I was a single mom with 2 kids and a little tiny part-time job with hardly any money. And it was a lot of the friends that the Bennyhoffs had at church that helped me out to get my house. But it had its problems. It had been empty for a few years. And actually, the mice thought it was theirs for quite a while. But Gordon came over, I'm sure it was more than once. I don't remember how many times. But he came over and worked on my plumbing for me and the kitchen sink. And he was always, you know, just a super guy. And boy, did he save me sometimes. The other thing is my son worked at the drive-in. And it was great because it was a job he could get to on the bike, you know. But the way Jason explained it was, David makes you do your time in the basement slicing onions for onion rings first, before you get to do anything else. And you have to work your way upstairs. No, but I mean, all our family still thinks those are the best onion rings ever, anywhere. And that's what I tell everyone. So, thank you, Jeanette, and everyone for keeping it going. And you too, Deb.
Thanks. I always knew if a kid could make it through a day making onion rings, they probably worked out upstairs.
I'll just add too of how long my mother-in-law Jeanette had stayed past the time that she should have just been at home, because I guess I've been there about 20 seasons, and she was still there helping us out at that point. So she would have, I guess you were 75, and so you were in there every day during the spring until the kids came and got out of school and helping us. So there was many shifts I also got to work with a lovely woman, and who's been a shoulder for me to cry on as I became a drive-in wife, who knew all the good and the bad out of it. So it's just a lot of great memories for me also.
Hello, Bennyhoffs. It's Sherry. Hi. I just have to say we love you so much, and it's just such wonderful memories. And I've got a really cute picture here of Allison every time they come into town, because she lives in Salt Lake now, raising a family. And she and Jody grew up together, and they could barely wait to be old enough to work at the drive-in. But all they could do was wash root beer mugs, and then they graduated up. But the one thing that Jeanette and Dave and Deb, I mean, you guys became a family to my daughter Allison, and I remember she got a little motor scooter and she could go to work at the drive-in to use the bike. And I love you. And the other thing is that you taught those kids how to use their brains, because they were car hops and they had to go out to the drive-in, or the order, and they give them a $20 bill, and the bill came to $8.76. They had to make change. And I remember working with Allison, so it wasn't anything like on a little machine. So thank you. And you know, when the kids come in town, my son Tyler too, they just can't wait to have their onion rings and root beer. Thank you, we love you.
We still do that. We still make them count change by hand.
Yep.
And it's an interesting little process to get them to think that way, because they have to go back to like 3rd grade to think about their points. Not taught, they're taught to use the calculator, but they still are not allowed to use the calculator.
That's right.
Thank you, David, for bailing me out. In 1982, they called, there were 30 of us at Tonka Toys, that they called in the office and said, "You're done." We were middle management. And that middle management, and of course that really hit me because we had 4 sons. And I went to you and you hired me for that year until I got my feet on the ground. And I really appreciated that, because from there I went on up until where I'm at now. So I just wanted to thank you for that, Dave. Now, the area that you were in 1948, I was 8 years old, and my mother started with Tonka Toys in 1948. She was employee 19. But I can remember I was the only one. My sister was always running around. She was 10 years older than me. And I would take my little red wagon, and I would go down County Road 15, and where the dock people are, that, when the train came through, I remember the old steam engine that came through with granite and brought that to the Delano Granite Works over in Delano. And they would, polish, make stones, so on and so forth. But what they would do, what they didn't use, they brought back over there, and they dumped it right there where it was. And that whole area, there was not anything there, because I can remember that. And I can remember building the restaurant in that area. Our club had a grocery store. There was a lot of information there that I know about and still remember at this time. But I really want to thank you, Dave, and you've been so helpful. And of course, being on the Historical Society and Fire Department and so on and so forth, you've helped us out greatly in this community.
Hi, I'm Bob Dykowski, and I have a 1929 Ford Coupe, and I always wondered, I'd like to show it off, but I never had a place really to do that until I was able to do it at the drive-in. And in fact, I wore this cap about this Kitty Hawk, and being at the drive-in, I met some more people from the Kitty Hawk, and we got to meet them too, which was really fit. I was really interested in how you got the idea of all the cars and parking in there and that. Thank you.
I went to school with Sandy, so I've been around driving for years and years and years. But one of my favorite memories, and it still strikes me as odd, is we could all pile up in the car, go to the drive-in for the hangout, order just something to drink, and we never got kicked out of it. We could sit there for hours and just visiting and hanging out with our friends, and the welcoming feeling that we always had, You don't always feel that anymore when you go places. You feel like, okay, we gotta eat or drink and get back out, It was never that way. And yes, I think our era did a lot of bridge jumping. But we were safer. We went on the little red bridge, they called it, off of Island Park. And now I got the memories. I grew up here, my kids grew up here. I bring my own car here. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say, and what I want to say is thank you to all the Bennyhoffs for keeping that memory alive for all of us that grew up here, all of us that have, even the new people now. The fact that it has been here so long, and it's been in the same family, it's just like an icon, and it's just special. You are all so special, keeping it alive. Thank you.
And Dave, can you answer that question about how you started the car show night? I know it was a question about how did you get the idea of starting the car show?
Okay, so does anybody know the Tower family from Mound? Okay, the Tower family has been here for years. I think there was like 7 kids. Anyhow, Terry Tower was a couple years younger than me, and I would probably say it's probably been 26 years ago. He came to me and he says, "Dave, do you mind if I have my car show on Thursday nights at the drive-in?" And I thought, oh man, I'm not going there. It's going to be a hangout. They're not going to eat, and the rest of my customers won't like it. But I couldn't say no. He was a friend. So I said, sure, Terry, go ahead, do it. They came, they sat down at one of the picnic tables, had their little meeting, had dinner, got up and left. There were 7 cars. The next week, there was 14. 14 turned into 28, 28 turned into 50. Pretty soon, 25 years later, sometimes we have 500 cars there in a night. So, in a way. Oh yeah, I mean it's. Yeah, I probably shouldn't talk about the financial part, but yeah. Well, people really ask that. I mean, I can still go into the grocery store or anywhere around Mound, and I'll still have people come up to me and they'll say, "Boy, Dave, I bet you really ate that Thursday night. I bet you don't make a penny." They're all just hanging out, and well, if you have a day during the week that can beat a Saturday or a Sunday, you know you're doing a lot of business. So it's a money maker, I'll tell you that, providing the sun's out.
All you have to do is look across the street and see how many cars are parked. Because yours is full. So they walk across the slope.
Right. If I would have known this today, or back when, where the car wash is, I remember when I was first taking over the drive-in from my dad, that came up for sale, and I would have been able to buy it, believe it or not, for $5,000. I remember it was $5,000 for back taxes. And if I would have known then what I see today, wow, it would have made a great parking lot, wouldn't it?
The other part of the Thursday night process was Dave, whether any day of the week, if someone stopped by with a vehicle, with a classic car, he would run out and get their name and their address. And I had a growing mailing list, and that's back when we used to throw one party a year. It was more, the Thursday nights came a little later, but we used to do the one party every summer with the DJ and do the contests, the hula hoop and all that kind of stuff. And so the mailing list grew to about 500 people, because every time a car came out, Dave was out there getting so I would send out the mailing list, and then over the last, I don't know how many years it was, we flipped it to saying, why don't we just have everybody come on Thursday night, and the word would get around. Because oftentimes you'd plan this big party and it would rain, and then you'd be left over without food and no one would come. So the Thursday night just became a little more consistent and a little easier to handle. So, and then of course we had the 50th, which people did enjoy. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. People want to have another one, but we'll see if we get to 60. So.
Well, I used to walk down there, because I lived basically where this building is now. I used to walk down and go to jump in we used to go on the bridge and jump in the lake. And then we walked to the A&W. And Corey would kick us all of that because we were getting water all over the floor. And he didn't want to have us slippery. He was nice about it. That's all I wanted to say. Oh yeah, and you guys didn't say anything about you made it to state for wrestling. You didn't bring that up.
That's because he missed it.
Didn't talk about going to state for wrestling.
Oh, we're not going there.
That's why his son did, because David missed it.
Hi there, my name is Joel Holloway, class of '69, Mound High.
Joel.
And my family, there were 9 of us, and of course I was born in 51. Remember when I graduated in 69, Bonnie came up to me and she goes, Joel, it's really something that you graduated. I can't believe I'm a year older, I'm older than you. And so, anyway, happy birthday. So I was born in November of 51. Anyway, the root beer stand, I think I had 2 brothers, I don't know how many, worked there. And the one talks about it all the time. He still talks about it. And I came to I don't remember which reunion I came to for the, I think it was the 40th. I don't remember. Elvis was there. And, I remember I wanted to represent my family because nobody else could go. And we had parallel lives, our families and your family. But when I went in there, I think it was Bonnie, but somebody said, sit down, Joel. So I got to sit with the family. That's what they were like. That's the family. I got to sit with them, and it wasn't my, it wasn't my driving, but I got to sit with you. Sandy, you danced with me when Elvis was singing. I guess I just wanted to speechify. The one thing I wanted to say was, the things that are going on in the news, and the increase of suicides and all such things, and drugs and all these such things. When you go to the Minnetonka Drive In and you visit this family, it's not just history, it's America. And you go, I'm in America. You feel like you're in a movie when you go there. You're preserving America, and there's so much negative and so many bad things. And there's so much that has been lost in America that you don't do anymore. People don't gather and sing together anymore. There's so many things that are missing, and that's why we have suicides and things. But when you have America here, we need to keep it going.
Amen. Say amen. Amen. Yes.
Yeah. Anybody else? Comments? Oh.
I guess I'm a latecomer to the drive-in. I've only been hanging around there for 20 years. 50 years. Anyway, I didn't know about the Thursday night hot rod thing until a coworker of mine said, "You really got to go to the drive-in on Thursday nights." He knew I liked classic cars, and I photograph classic cars. He said, "You really got to go to the drive-in on Thursday night. You just love it." So, I kind of hemmed and hawed, but I finally made it out there, and I've been going back ever since. I was at the 42nd anniversary party, and I know I did a family picture there, so I owe that to you. I was late for the 50th because I had a wedding to shoot, but I made it to that. Got pictures of Dave with Elvis. And this poster here that you see on your right, when they had the 50th, Dave approached me and said, we really want to do a poster for the 50th. I said, okay. So I handpicked all the cars that are in the picture. The newest one in there is a 61 Corvette because I wanted it to be as true to the time period that it opened as I could. So all the cars are older than that. And well, we sold a bunch back then, but I still got a bunch left, so. And he's talking about another one for the next big anniversary. So we'll see. Thank you all for coming.
Anybody have a comment? No?
I was asking Tim Tim is the master of small world stories. That's why I said, did he have a good one? Because the drive-in pops up in the weirdest places all around the world, which is amazing to me, but y'all know how small world stories can go. And I'll just tell you my favorite one that happened to me. I was over in Stockholm, Sweden, and I met this young man who was working in a church, and he was from Minnesota, as was his mother. And in visiting with him, it turns out his mother was one of our first car hops.
See?
And my dad always, he thought it was funny. I remember way back then when he said, do you ever notice whenever you meet somebody that knows somebody you know, somebody always says, it's a small world. And he always got a chuckle out of that. We'd kind of wait for that. Then that became a game that I used to play at work where I ended up working was people would go off and travel and then come back. And the rule was you could never hint. You guys waited. And if somebody said it's a small world, you get a point. And it almost always happened.
Many thanks to the Bennyhoff family. It has just been a supreme honor to get to know you, to learn your history. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks to Liz, amazing what you put together. And actually, there were some things that you told about the Bennyhoff family that I didn't even know, so there you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.